Cancer shows no mercy. It creeps in without a sound. Deep inside your body, something goes wrong in a single cell. Then one more, then another, and then one afternoon, a doctor looks straight at you and delivers those words. You have cancer. It robs you of years. It robs you of people you love. It breaks whole families into pieces. It claims the young. It claims the old. It makes no exceptions. Not for who you are, not for how much life you still have ahead of you. Cancer is among the cruelest forces found anywhere in nature. And here is the darkest part. It has existed since the very beginning. The majority of people assume cancer is a disease of our times. We put the blame on junk food, dirty air, and our inactive ways of living. And while those factors do matter, the real story reaches far deeper into the past. In 2016, deep inside a cave in South Africa, researchers pulled out a foot bone belonging to a human ancestor. That bone was from a species known as Paranthropus robustus, or early Homo. It was approximately 1.7 million years old, and it carried clear evidence of osteosarcoma, a dangerous form of bone cancer. This was no crack or break from an injury. That bone held a tumor inside a creature that roamed this planet long before humans ever appeared. The same research also turned up a benign spinal tumor in another skeleton from roughly the same period. Scientists describe these types of growths as neoplasms. Discovering them in fossils close to 2 million years old reveals something extraordinary. Cancer is not recent. Cancer is ancient. Cancer tends to target soft tissue, organs, skin, blood. Soft tissue doesn't last through the ages. It breaks down and disappears over hundreds and thousands of years. All that is left behind is bone. So the cancers we come across in the fossil record represent only a small fraction of everything that once existed. Scientists describe this as a preservation bias. We are limited to seeing only the cancers that left a trace on hard tissue. That is exactly why mummies have been so valuable. Mummies protect soft tissue, and they have revealed enormous amounts of information. Scientists working with CT scans and high-level imaging have come across tumors inside Egyptian mummies that go back thousands of years. In one study, researchers examined 137 mummies and spotted signs of cancer in multiple cases. When you place the fossil evidence and the mummy evidence side by side, the conclusion becomes clear. Ancient humans developed cancer on a regular basis. But physical remains are not the only source of information we have. People from long ago also put cancer into writing. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian document, dates back to roughly 1600 BCE. It talks about protruding tumors found on the breast. The writing makes clear that nothing could be done about them. That is a blunt and deeply sad statement coming from a doctor who lived nearly 4,000 years ago. The Greek physician Hippocrates, who walked the earth around 400 BCE, was the first to give cancer its name. He chose the word carcinos, which is the Greek word for crab. In his view, the swollen blood vessels around a tumor resembled the legs of a crab spreading outward. The Roman physician Celsus later carried that word into Latin, turning it into the word cancer. That is the same word the whole world still uses to this day. So across thousands of years and many different civilizations, human beings noticed cancer, wrote it down, and worked to understand it. They just had no idea what was actually causing it. To truly appreciate why cancer goes back so far, we first need to get clear on what cancer actually is. Cancer begins when a cell receives a mutation. The DNA within that cell either gets harmed or reproduced the wrong way. In most cases, the body detects and corrects these errors before anything goes wrong. But occasionally, a mutated cell manages to slip right past those defenses. It starts multiplying with no off switch. It grows into a lump. It spreads into the tissue around it. Mutations do not need a trigger. They occur on their own. They can take place every single time a cell reproduces. That is simply the nature of living things. The bigger your body and the longer your life, the higher the likelihood that one of those mutations will not be caught. Any living thing made of cells that divide carries the same vulnerability. Dinosaurs got cancer, ancient fish got cancer, even trees can get cancer. So were ancient humans actually struck by cancer less than people are today? The truthful response is probably yes, but the reason is not what most people would guess. The number one factor is how long people lived. The vast majority of ancient humans never made it to old age. They were brought down by disease, physical harm, wild animals, and hunger. A typical prehistoric human could expect to reach only somewhere between 25 and 35 years of age. Cancer is slow. The bulk of cancers show up after a person turns 50. If your life ends at 30 because of a lion attack or an infected tooth, cancer has no window to emerge. Ancient humans also dealt with a completely different set of risk factors. They never touched tobacco. No industrial chemicals ever entered their bodies. Their food came straight from the earth. Their bodies were physically active every single day. All of this kept certain cancer risks at a lower level, but that doesn't mean they were out of danger. Smoke rising off cooking fires damaged their lungs. Parasitic infections and ongoing inflammation inside the body can push certain cancers forward. Spending every waking hour under an open sky with no protection raises the likelihood of skin cancer. They were not immune to cancer, they were simply cut down by other causes before cancer ever had a chance to take hold. So how did cancer become something we hear about every single day? A large part of the explanation is simply that we live much longer now. Advances in medicine have wiped out or pushed back many of the conditions that used to end lives early. As a result, enormous numbers of people are now making it to their 60s, 70s, and 80s. That is the exact age range where cancer is most likely to appear and be caught. Another piece of the puzzle is how much better we have gotten at finding it. Today we have equipment capable of tracking down a tumor no bigger than a fingernail hiding deep inside someone's body. Doctors in ancient times could only work with what they could see or feel from the outside. The overwhelming majority of internal cancers went completely undetected. And of course, the choices people make in the modern world do push certain cancer risks higher. Tobacco has a direct connection to lung, throat, and mouth cancer. Processed red meat has ties to colorectal cancer. Obesity is associated with more than a dozen different cancer types. UV radiation brings about skin cancer. Knowing that cancer stretches back millions of years is actually a gift to the scientists of today. If it has traveled alongside us for that long, it means it is embedded in the very core of how multicellular life operates. Researchers are now digging into the question of why certain ancient animals seem to get cancer far less often. Elephants, for instance, carry additional copies of a cancer-blocking gene called TP53. Scientists are taking a hard look at those genes to determine whether they could open the door to fresh approaches in treating human cancer. The fossil record also gives us a way to watch how cancer rates have shifted across time. By placing ancient bone tumors next to modern ones, researchers can begin to map out how particular cancers progress and what kinds of environments seem to bring them on. Cancer is not simply a health crisis. It is a question that evolution has been asking for a very long time. And digging into that history is one of the key ways we find answers. A bone that is 1.7 million years old, a tumor inside it, a living being that existed before words, before flames, before anything we would call a society. Cancer was already present. It stands as one of the longest running threats the human family has ever had to confront. And for the very first time across all of that history, we are finally equipped to stand against it.